Welcome to the Happier Attorney, where we talk about how you can have a practice that you love, a life that you love, and still practice law. We talk about flat fees and money and mindset, and really how we reframe what we have been taught as attorneys. And today, my guest is Arriya Kingrey, and she is a leadership coach, an entrepreneur coach. She lives on Bainbridge Island, right outside of Seattle. And I worked with her years ago on my own money issues. That's why we're going to talk to her today. And she is going to share with us some of my own examples, what she saw in me, and how I was able to move through some of my own mindset issues that I see in other attorneys. And if you have any interest in working with her, information is in the link. So hope you enjoy. When I met you, I knew I had some money issues in my head. I thought that I wasn't making the money that I should be making. It turns out I was doing better than I thought. But, I was comparing myself to what I thought other attorneys made, and always feeling short. And my relationship with money was so unhealthy. And I didn't understand why. And in fact, I think it's fair to say, and, correct me if I'm wrong, that I resented money almost. I certainly resented people that had money, and I couldn't understand why they had it and I didn't. And so working with you was the first time that I really examined my relationship with money. I had read, how many personal finance books? I knew the things to do. And when I started working with you, you started easy, kind of with some marketing. And it was the first time, I had been using flat fees, but I had been charging pretty well. But it was the first time that somebody asked me, and I'll never forget this. You asked me, what are clients getting out of working with you? And for everyone who's worked with me, when I'm like, what is the cost of somebody not working with you? Well, this is where I got it. Area right here is where I got that from. And you actually said, so what you're telling me after I described what my work was more in depth, that people are actually being harmed if they don't work with you. And I was blown away by that. I'd never thought of that before. And it was true. It was absolutely true. Not only that I wasn't bringing in the money that I was capable of, even though my bills were paid, and I still had my bills are paid. Stop. My bills are paid. That's where we stop, right? But you also pointed out that I like to get rid of money real fast. You said it was a hot potato. And that I didn't understand. And even after some work, it took me years to understand that. So when you work with entrepreneurs, attorneys who have their own practice are entrepreneurs, whether they like to recognize it or not. I assume I'm not the only attorney that you have seen that had these same, it feels like I was the only one, but you see this all the time with your clients, right?
Yes.
So what do you see that what do you see that I clearly didn't see when I started working with you?
Well, I think there's a lot that happens for our culture where we are expected to live here and here alone. And here, there's a lot of amazing things that happen. And also there's a lot of suffering that we can create for ourselves. And so even one of the words that you named right at the beginning, compare, right? Like, so you would compare yourself to the idea, to the thought of what you perceived other people to be making. And like, then suffering commence, right? So there's a lot that happens here. And what I noticed is that, the stories that we create, the stories that we hold in our tissues, in our lineage, in our DNA, right? Like who we have become and who we are here to be. Sometimes we hold some stories that don't support us. And it is literally a part of what we get to do here is to, choose it. So we can either choose to keep it going or we can choose to be like, That's not actually supporting me. That's not actually the thing that I would like to be experiencing. And then what is it that you would like to experience instead? And I think a lot of times we, as again, at a culture level, and I think also for people who are, in this profession, the head, the mind is a glorious thing, right? It is. The mind is an amazing thing. And also it's connected to this body. And the body also is an amazing thing. And when we let them work together, it is you can't even begin to put into words how all of those pieces begin to come together. So we get to start to tap into the wisdom that exists in all of the parts of us. And then we can start to see what is actually true for us. So I think one of the things that, the compare is one, the upper limit is one, I'll only allow myself to have this experience. Being afraid of our own power, I think, is a really big one. We are very powerful creators. We are very powerful beings, and we can make some stuff happen. We can intend for things to happen. We can create things, and sometimes those things they're not welcome, or accepted or normal. Even perhaps, like you said, people who are in this profession are also entrepreneurs, even if that's not how they might perceive it. That's something, right? That's the thing where we can have a story about and hold ourselves into a certain way. And if we were really to own the fact that this is my business and this is how I choose to do business in the world, and all of the parts that come with that, we are having to tap into a part of this is who we are. This is what we're here to create. This is what we're here to do, how we're here to show up and serve. And being in that energy of, I have something to bring here. I have value to share, even if there are stories that may be counter to that. That can feel uncomfortable coming up against society and family and culture where that's not normal or welcome, or wait, who do you think you are? So there's just a lot. There can be a lot of stories that we can hold on to, and I don't say stories in a way to diminish it, because they are real and they are legit in our experience. And then also they are stories, and we can have a different experience of them.
And they feel so true.
They are true.
I'll never forget when when we were working together, there was one week in particular that I had a lot of initials. I don't even know if you remember this. It was so many years ago, but I had a lot of initials on the calendar, an unusual number for the week ahead. And you said, I want you to close your eyes and just come up with the first word that comes up. If everyone hired you next week, everyone hired you, what would that number be? And what's the word that comes up to describe that? And it was going to be a big number. If everybody hired me, even for basic estate planning, it was going to be a big number. Mm-hmm. And, after I was like, this is stupid, just another one of stupid, areas, stupid things that she's telling me to do. This is stupid, stupid, stupid. And I did it though. And I'll never forget. I closed my eyes and the word that came shooting out of my mouth was bad. It would be bad. If everyone hired me, it would be bad. And I was like, what? That's absurd. That doesn't even make any sense. Mm-hmm. And, when we started going down, okay, what was that about? Why would it be bad? It didn't take me very long to get from, well, if everyone hired me, that would be a lot of work, a lot of pressure. We wouldn't get it done. We'd, drop some balls. Then we'd have unhappy clients. Now there's a bar complaint. Now I'm disbarred. Now I lose my home. And now I'm homeless. And now I'm dying alone in a ditch. Mm-hmm. I mean, with 0.001 seconds in my head. Right. Mm-hmm. And you said, is that true? I'm like, no. We could totally handle, if everyone hired us, we could totally handle it without any problem. I mean, we'd be on our toes, but without any problem, we could handle that. And yet I'd been showing up with don't hire me.
Right.
And I had no idea.
And I think I love that you named that last part too, especially because the how you're showing up, the what you're actually holding in you. I know this is the part, right? It's like how we can have this experience of I'm doing all the things, I'm saying all the things.
Because I was doing the marketing,
Absolutely.
I was doing the networking, I was doing the things. And even when clients were hiring me, I was doing the things.
Yep. And then what is it that's also present? The story. And the story is, again, like I really want to just name that this is not something to diminish, right? It is real and it is a part of how you're showing up. And so, you know how people say that you can walk into a room and you could like scan the room and you could see who are the people that you want to connect with or who are the people you don't. It's the same thing. People can pick up a vibe or a feeling or a sense from you. And it does speak really loud. It does speak really loud. And so if we're doing all the things, there's a way that we're going through the motions, but we're also still holding things at arm's length to say, I'm going through all of the efforting, but please stay away. And please don't come closer.
Right.
And so that is interference, and that gets in the way of actually have the experience that we say that we want to have. When there's also an experience in our body and deeper in us that is saying, please stay away. Yeah. So they're working against each other and it can cancel each other out.
And it's so frustrating because, I was doing the things and I couldn't understand like why. And so then you get into this, well, I'm just not meant to have money. And that's okay because I don't want to be a greedy whore anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it would be nice to not have financial stress. I mean, it was just always this conflict, this just complete conflict. And I never had quite the issue that a lot of attorneys that I talk to have with the guilt overcharging. Looking back, I did okay with charging some big numbers. And I didn't have this person doesn't have the money and I have no business charging them. Mm-hmm. Can you address that though? Because I never bought into that anyway, but now I have a completely 180 where you're actually doing that person a disservice when you're not charging enough for them. You're showing up different. They're showing up different. You're not helping them. But can you address that a little bit? Because I know that there's a lot of attorneys out there who have guilt overcharging. Mm-hmm. Unless the millionaire comes in, they're like, oh, this person can't afford it. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, part of it is probably still connected to that place of like, please stay away, right? Like, so there is a little bit of that that could be there. The thing that I'm curious about, I'm going to just come back to you for just a second. Is
absolutely.
From the place where you are now, can you see how the version of you here actually is quite impactful in the world, having money?
Absolutely.
Right? It's like when you have integrity, when you believe in what it is that you're doing, when you know that you're adding value in the world, people who are coming from a place of integrity and wholeness and like really truly being aligned with service, not servitude, but like real, true service, then money gets to be with that in a different way, right? There's no hoarding energy there. There's no hot potato. It's like actually everything is circulating in the way that it serves. And having money serves and circulating money serves, right? It just depends on what is it that your system is aligned to. And I think a lot of times there are stages that people can move through where, initially it is really about, we need to take care of our human. We need to take care of like food on the table, electrical bills. Like we need to deal with the bare bones of like facts of life here. And that there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with that, right? There's fear that's present with that. There's lack that's present in a big way there. And so when we're operating in that level of just trying to get our bare needs met, we're going to have one experience with money. when we're operating, another level then is we come to the place where we are cared for, we can care for ourselves, we can care for our family. And now it's like, okay, what is this work that you're doing? What is it? Right? If it's now, sure, you can care for yourself and your family. And also there comes a time where, do we want there to be something more, or is that enough? Is that not, even the word enough is funny to say that, right? So it's then, okay, we can actually be creating something even bigger than what we need, what is required, and we're safe and we're satisfied and nourished. Then how does money serve then? And money gets to serve that way where, like, who are the other people that have integrity, that are delivering their gifts into the world in a truly aligned with service way, that we get to then bring onto our team, or that we get to hire as a, contribution to our business or our life. And so you can start to see how the money begins to really be influential in the way that you are contributing to your values, right? So where are you directing the energy gets to be an inquiry that we get to hold. And I honor each of the levels that people are at, because it's not just like, well, forget about the electrical bill. Right? It's different for different people at different stages are in. Their focus is in a different place. And so acknowledging where you are and what is your stage of where you're wanting to play and what you're wanting to create can help to acclimate all the rest of the parts to say, okay, you know what? Today we are about creating this value in the world. And 10 years ago, it used to be about putting food on the table.
Yeah.
And now we're in a different place. So perhaps there are some different games and different rules to the game that we play from here that didn't work back then. And so being able to update those along the way are important, right? If you used to work in a firm and your every single second of hustle mattered, and every single sweat drop that you leaked on a piece of paper mattered,
right,
and you had to hold the energy of hustle all the time in order to show your worth and your value and how much commitment you had, but you're not doing that anymore, and you actually have your own business and your own clients in your own way. Can you see how perhaps that way of holding the energy of hustle and trying and efforting 10 times more, even perhaps than what it actually was required, is not necessary? And so there's a new way to do it from here. So I think it's just when we stay in the inquiry of what is it that you would like to create, and then being willing to actually hold the possibility that that is available, then we get to stay in our creation energy, and we get to stay current with what's actually present in this moment. And we can stay in perspective to what used to be true versus what is true here and now.
And when I work with attorneys, sometimes, everybody says they want to make, a ton of money. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now kind of the thing around the practice management field is $1 million a year. Like that's the bar, which I have concerns with, because what if that doesn't, so if you don't make that, then you're a failure or whatever. But how do you balance being open to money and wanting to accept money and having a healthy relationship with it, and not having money be the focus, the thing that you're chasing? Mm-hmm. Because from my experience, when I chased the money, it's like anything else that you chase, it runs away.
Exactly.
Where when I not chased, but focused on the work, not immediately, but then the money comes. But how do you balance that where you have goals, but the money isn't the thing that you're chasing? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think goals are a way that we can set ourselves up to fail. And it's also a way that we can use to measure our success.
Also,
and also that those number measurements are only capturing part of what actually is important, usually, right? So I could, I could have, I'll just use the example when I used to work in corporate. Yeah, I made a lot of money. And also I ate chocolate at 8:30 in the morning while I was driving to work, because I was
I don't know that that's so bad.
Inherent level of stress. Well, when it's a coping mechanism.
Right. I'm teasing.
If I'm going to eat chocolate at 8:30 in the morning, now I'm going to enjoy it.
Right. There we go.
Yeah. So I think that there's a difference between, like, if we were to think about where is the direction that you're pointing your arrow, right? So if you are moving in the direction of creating $1 million business, why? What is it that's important about that? And if we continue to go deeper, what is important? I mean, I remember doing this with you. What is important about that? And what is important about that? And it can be really annoying. And also, it really does begin to point us into the direction of what is it that was really important here. And again, when we come back, it's different for different people, right? Everybody has their own design and their own way that supports them to create their experience of success, whatever that might be. And when we're aligned with delivering our value and delivering value, I should say, not our value, delivering value and being aligned with service, how we're making our contribution in the world, what is actually our vision, and how does that $1 million contribute and play a part in that, right? So it's not just one dimensional. We can't hold one metric to be able to determine success. It's much more multifaceted than that. We are much more multifaceted than that. And so to my point about eating chocolate at 8:30 in the morning, because it's a coping mechanism, it's like, well, yeah, but my metrics are great. Right. But I am painfully miserable, right? So where does that metric come into play, right? How much, and again, depending on where we're at along the way, sometimes that's a total, luxury to even consider having peace in the body. But also for the people that you're probably working with and speaking to here, peace in the body is an actually really important part of creating success, right? Because you can do a better job for your clients. You can be in curiosity with them. You can be willing to go deeper and really see them and hear them in a way that you can't if you're trying to get your own, sensory needs met. So the way that I kind of think about things is, where is the direction that we're pointing the arrow? What is the vision? Where is it that we're heading? And sometimes the vision is going to be more about the dollars because of what the dollars allow us to be able to do. And other times the vision is going to be more about what's the next creation that's coming, or something totally different, depending on what's going on for each person. But when we're allowing ourselves to look at where is it that we're pointing the arrow, and then can we even get curious about where is beyond that? Because then that begins to create more of a sustainable energy experience for us, because then it's not, I'm done. Phew, I made it. Now I can stop, because that's what you do when you run a race. Like when you finish, you're done, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're doing here. So you're moving in the direction of where you're wanting to go, and it gets to be sustainable. And when we also are willing to look at, or even have a felt sense of what might be coming next, like what might actually be beyond even the thing that we can in our minds grasp at the moment, then we are really starting to orient our whole system to, we're doing something here that's bigger than the $1 million, or we're doing something bigger than even the creation that we can create in our mind at this moment, right? We're moving in the direction of. So I think it is very much a balance between being willing to fully own the fact that we can create something, being willing to say, I can create $1 million in my business this year. I am doing it, right? And to feel what that feels. Is it true? Can you feel that in your body as true? Is it in your mind as an idea? Is it out there in the future as a concept that is available? Where is it in relation to your experience? So setting the intention, this is where I'm pointing my arrow. And then also, when we do point our arrow in a direction and we name it, we are gathering up these resources that are all around us, that are seen and not seen, that are obvious and, like team members and clients, and things that are not obvious, like, oh, this opportunity just came out of nowhere. And look at that. It brings me directly in the direction that I'm heading. All of those things start to move with us. And so it's a balance of the both, right? It's, yes, I'm going in the direction of this, being able to acclimate the fact that my body says, yeah, we are doing this. Like, I can feel it. It's super close, landed. I feel safe doing it. And also, I'm connecting into what is it that's even beyond that.
Yeah. I love the getting curious, because the last couple of years, I've done a crap ton of internal work, and getting curious has been a key part of that, because there's a reason we do everything, whether we're conscious of it or not. And when I work with my clients and they don't understand why they're not because they're like me, they were doing the things, whatever, or they're not doing the things, and they always have a reason why they can't do the things. And, I just laugh because it's, I couldn't charge that because I'm in rural area, or I can't charge that because my clients are poor, or, I can't even get a $5,000 retainer. There's no way that I'm going to get a $10,000 flat fee, or, all of the stuff that people say, and which I have plenty of clients that prove them wrong every single day. But when I start really getting down with people, they all say, okay, yes, I ask them, what would be bad about making, say, $400,000 a year? Nothing. I'm like, well, then why aren't you doing it? Well, the things. What would be bad about making 800, whatever the number, I just pull numbers out of my hat. And when we really start getting down to not their head, because on paper it sounds great. But when we really get into what would that look like? How would that impact your life? What would be bad about it? There's always a reason. I had one client who, her father was her hero, loved him to death. And he had told her from the time she could remember that women were bad with money. Women couldn't manage money. And it took her a long time to see that connection of, my hero, my dad, is telling me, women can't manage money. What would happen if I made a lot of money? Like, she didn't see that connection at all. Yeah. And that was completely preventing her. I had another client, a gentleman who should have been making a lot of money on paper. There was no valid reason. When we dug in, and he started getting defensive, where I knew I was getting somewhere. Like, when people start getting angry at me, I'm like, oh, I'm on it. And I'm tenacious, baby. I was a litigator. I am a dog with a bone. I'm going there. And to make a long story short, he had made money previously, and he was a total jerk. Like, he had marriages imploding. His kids didn't respect him. He didn't want to be that person again. Of course, this wasn't conscious at all. But he was equating, if I make good money, to being that person. I have a very good friend who came up in a middle socioeconomic status home. She and her husband met in the first year of college, started a very successful investment business, crap ton of money, like, private planes, 12 homes kind of money. And that has caused issues with her family. Even though she has been very generous with them, it causes issues all the time. I've heard them. I've been in the room where a snide comment is made. And so the getting curious, the more that I have done that myself, I came to realize some big ahas of why I was punishing myself, why I was not allowing myself. And and those places were in some really dark, deep, ugly places that were filled with pain, as they always are. And that's kind of what sucks about doing some of this work is, it brings up pain. I mean, that's what you need to fix. And I was, for a lack of a better term, flogging myself, like that religious group that, whips themselves. I perceived that I had done something bad. I didn't. That was trauma. And so, making money was not acknowledging my shame. To put it that simply, I could do all of the things in the world that I wanted to do, but my subconscious was not going to allow me to get to a certain point where it would mean that I'd overcome that and I didn't have anything to be shameful about. And once I got that, once I figured out what was going on, it blew wide open. It blew wide open. That was after a lot of work, a lot of really painful work. And so what do you see in people? How do you get them to keep going down and keep getting curious and asking and not letting, I shouldn't say letting them, but recognizing when they are lying to themselves? Because our brain's great. Like, we can come up with beautiful, wonderful explanations that are complete crap.
Especially when it's literally your job.
When it's literally your job. Exactly. Okay.
So I think that's an important part to acknowledge, right? Is that part of, and people who do what you all do here, is that the mind can be an amazing thing that can serve. And literally part of what my understanding of your job is to look at both sides of everything.
Right.
We're looking at both sides of everything, and you could create an argument out of anything. Like, imagine how well that's going to go over. You're trying to keep attached to your attachments, right? And the attachments, I mean, are the things like, well, I can't charge that, right? Like, whatever's underneath that there's an attachment there, right? It's like part of our identity of who we are. And I will just say that I'm going to just say, this is funny. Word try, we're going to just release that. Because the whole thing is that when we're working with a level of identity, which is what this is, right? When we're coming to the next, when we're willing to actually come to what is true, there are some things that are untrue that get to fall away. And we can hold the idea that it has to be painful and miserable and take a lot of work and be super long and hard and blah. Or we can actually have an experience that doesn't have to be that either, right? If we're willing. And I think part of what, when people first start down these inquiries, it can feel painful and it can feel scary because we don't know what's on the other side. And the need to know at an intellectual level is part of what is keeping us as a society from being able to really step into the next level of our leadership and be able to embody the fullness of the gifts and the values and what it is that we really are here to bring forward in the world. And so when we're willing to be, what I like to say is, be willing to be in the unknown, right? And when we are, yeah, right? What?
It's so scary.
Yeah, right. And also, you are already, everybody who's listening to this is probably already quite an expert at not knowing some things too, right? And I don't mean that in a facetious way. I mean that for real, because you don't know what's going to happen if you have to walk into court and face some person that you don't know. You don't know how your client is going to respond to something. You don't know. There's just like a million things
and the attorneys, the older that I get, and hopefully the wiser I get, the more I am so comfortable saying, I don't know shit. I don't know anything. Right.
And that is the place, right? Being willing to simultaneously be in the not knowing and the knowing is really where some gold happens, right? That's really where some magic can happen, because what we're willing to do then is we're willing to say, okay, so this whole part of us where we're holding something that's, a disconnect from where we want to actually be, I don't know what it is. Are you willing to know? And just by being willing starts the whole thing, right? Just by being willing. And it's not about like, oh yeah, I want to hear about the super, what I perceive to be scary, dark, creepy places. Are you willing to actually create what you want to create? Are you willing to actually have the experience that you want to be having? And then, like, the thing that I know, because this, the way that I would frame this is like an identity death. And and then, like coming into the next level of what is true, though that has a, especially when people have their very first experiences with it, has a really great, powerful story of being very super painful and uncomfortable and challenging. And also when we are able to know that there are these phases that happen as a part of this, then our mind has something to know, even when we don't know, right? So one of the things, I don't know a whole bunch of stuff. It's like my job to not know a whole bunch of stuff, because I meet each person where they are and connect in with what is it that's actually true for that person. Because everybody has their own design. Everybody has their own stories. There are some that are common for sure. And also, like, where is the one place that's going to open up something? So being able to not know and know together is really powerful. And when we can know that, oh, there's actually this identity is like releasing and becoming that's happening. And we can say, okay, so, because one of the things I see for the people that I work with is we can love to take forever in the resistance of the releasing of the identity that's not working for us or is not serving us anymore. And because we don't know what's on the other side, we don't even know that there is another side, right? And so what I know, this is one of the things that I know, is that it's always better on the other side. And like, I will never make a guarantee about anything except for that. I will say with 100% certainty, it's always so much better on the other side. And it's better in ways that our minds could never even possibly imagine, because our minds are the things that are keeping us in the construct of the way that it is already. So it is about when we get to start to know, like, oh, okay, so there's integration, there's the hints and clues, there's the time to go, let's look. And then there's the time to re-establish ourselves in this new way. When we start to understand these different places along the path, then it gives our minds something to be able to know, so that we're more willing to go into the places that we don't know.
And especially with attorneys, because, we are taught our attorney culture, man, it's screwed up. And there are consequences. Just in January, 4 attorneys in Kentucky killed themselves. Okay. Let's not go into the drug addicts and the alcoholism and the workaholism, which to me is the same thing as, a drug addiction. You're running. And this culture is, I remember the first day in law school, you got to work hard. If you want to be a better attorney, work harder. If you want more money, work harder.
Yeah.
And, this notion that the more hours you put in, the harder you work, the closer to God you get, it's part of our culture, to the point of when I have students who learn flat fees, they're working less. They're working a lot less hours. Mm-hmm. And that is hard for them. And then they don't feel like they're being an attorney. Like, am I, there's a superstar in our group. She works 18 hours a week, 18 hours. And you also like, is she still an attorney? Like, can you even say you're an attorney if you're not working? Like, so we hold on to that. And it's just such this false dichotomy. Like, who came up with that? And so, but to reframe, like, no, I can be an attorney and work these number of hours and still make this amount of money and actually do a better job for my clients, by the way. Mm-hmm. And when I look back, like, as you know, I'm not actively practicing. This is all I'm doing. But looking back now, I was just having this conversation with an attorney this morning. Looking back now, how I would practice, even in litigation, is a complete night and day difference. And I was a really good attorney. I was a good litigator. I fought for my clients. I was a warrior. Well, I'm still a warrior. I'm never not going to be. But now my sword is put away. I'm not just, if I need it, it's right here. But I don't have to work so hard. And me showing up now, if I went back and practiced, would be so much calmer and not afraid. And I actually think I would do a much better job now, coming from a place of just, like you said, peace and calm. Mm-hmm. I would be such a better litigator. Mm-hmm. And the stuff wouldn't bother me. The opposing counsel acting like a fool, mm-hmm. whatever. Yeah. Have at it. It just, it's a complete night and day difference. Mm-hmm. And I used to think that, let's address this, because I think it's important, because I completely had I will be calm when I get the money. I will be at peace when these outside things happen, when I get the outside things. And I know you told me this. And I'm sure I was rolling my eyes, but I remember you saying it's not the things that you're doing or not doing, it's who you are. And when I changed who I was, regardless of the things out there, that's when the things started just flying to me. And I still don't completely understand it. I don't need to understand it. All I know is I'm happy now. And all of the things that I was chasing now just come running to me.
So isn't that so interesting that you're sitting in a place of I'm happy? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a thing.
Oh,
that's a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think there's the idea. So I'm going to just name the thing around the work culture. What I see oftentimes for very high achieving, ambitious people who know that they are here to create great change in the world, and they're doing it, and they're busting their butt to do it, is that there's a program that's running in your system that has you efforting multiples greater than what is actually required. So see if you can just imagine what you named about the opposing attorney acting like a whatever, right? Like, there's some kind of false outrage that needs to take place in order for you to be a good attorney for your client. That false outrage is exhausting in your system. And there's like an energetic that is running, that is present in your system that says, it's like for me, it shows up like if I have a to-do list and I'm running the to-do list in my mind and keeping track of it, all the things I have to do, and I have to feel really like, oh, it's going to be so hard to do all those things. My idea, my feeling in my body of, oh, it's going to be so hard to do those things, when if I just did them, I like, really? Okay. So that difference between what we're holding in our body as a program of, you have to be false outraged, even if you really are outraged, right? But like the amount of energy that you exert in your outrage is probably even more than is actually required. The amount of energy that you exert tending to the things that you need to do, probably more than is actually required. You're all experts in the thing that you do. You can actually do it without having to be in sweat and tears about it, which you probably all are aware of. And yet in our body, we still hold I did so much work.
Well, and you feel like you have two choices. Like, you're either completely outraged on your client's behalf and you're, getting your sword and going, or you're one of those other attorneys that could care less about their clients, who are horribly unethical. You feel like it's one of two choices, and it's not.
Right. And we can actually allow for that. It's like a motor running. If you leave your car, if you have a car that has motor that runs, then you would leave it running in your driveway, and it just is still working, even though it's not going anywhere. No one's in it. No one's trying to go anywhere. That's what it's like inside the body when it's holding these misperceptions about what work and effort are needed, required in order to be successful. And we can actually do the same. We can even create a better output we can create a better outcome and result for the person that we're working with without having to physically exhaust ourselves at the level that is not required. So it's really just it's like releasing all the layers of misperceptions that we hold just because we're humans and it's what we've learned along the way, and be able to still do it, right? And it's the same thing. It comes back to, if it takes you 10 hours to do the work and you get paid for 10 hours, then great. But if you can do it in 4, then yay for you. It's not like you should take 10 just because in order to do a good job, it should take you 10 hours, right? It's like, well, actually, I have an area of expertise that I can get things done a lot quicker. And speed is valued. Speed is valued.
It is.
Especially for people who are really trying to get things done and create their big, their big thing in the world. Speed is valued. And so if you can do something in 4 hours that would take normal people to do in 10, then that's something to be compensated for in right relationship with it, right? There's expertise, there's years of practice and, I know you all know all the things that you have to do and continue to do to stay at the level that you can do that at is highly valuable. And it's the same thing with this identity piece for me. Like you can take, decades to turn over every single rock, or you can just go right to the place in the unconscious and then do that.
Yeah.
And then have a different experience. Like how hard do you need it to be in order for it to be satisfying?
I was just talking to an attorney this morning about my trapeze experience. And I do regret that I never got you in trapeze when I was in Seattle, but the day is young. And in the trapeze swing, if you can imagine it, you have to wait to do a trick. And it always, and the instructor, until you really get it, the instructor will tell you when it's time to do the trick. And it always feels like they're late. Like they walked out like they don't know what they're talking about. They should have called it by now. Clearly they should have called it by now. Well, what happens is, if you try and do the trick early, it's either really, really, really hard or actually physically impossible. Mm-hmm. But if you wait until you get to the top of the swing, it's easy or easier. I mean, nothing in trapeze is easy, but you have the momentum. I mean, it's physics. Somebody could get on here and tell us all of the reasons why. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That has helped me so much. Mm-hmm. Because whatever we want, we want it here, where if we just relaxed a little bit and got to the top of the swing, it comes easily.
And so that's the difference between the energy, like how much energy do you output being like, it's not here yet. Why isn't it here yet? It should be here by now. Whereas if you're like, actually, I'm going to just lean back and wait for it to come and then do the thing, there's a humongous energy reserve that gets to be kept, right? And your adrenals and your nervous system and all of the parts of you that are, getting to be in that state, get to be used for something else that actually serves, that is real. And that is the thing with working with speed, is that there is actually a difference between hustling and hurrying and working with speed. What you just named is such a beautiful example of that, because when we are working with speed, it's actually not about us going faster. It's about us leaning back and sitting down and being open to allow it to come to us at the speed that it is actually designed to come to us. When we are, just like you said at the beginning, when you're leaning forward, what you said, when you're what did you say? You said
when you're
chasing, you're actually pushing things away. Well, if you imagine the shape of your body, you're like oriented forward when you're chasing something. You are pushing things away. If you are hurrying, you are oriented forward. You are still holding the energy of chasing things away. If you sit back, even if you just micro sit back, you are then shifting everything to be, okay, I'm available and I'm ready and open for things to come. And then this whole thing that we are doing is slowing things down through resistance. So if we want to allow things to happen faster, then we can step into working with and out of the don't come to me resistance. And then things get to happen for us.
And it's hard because, I've been there where, the potential client's sitting across from you and, the rent's due and you don't have it.
Right.
And you can almost feel yourself like, and I'll do this exercise with clients where I'm like, imagine your dream date. Okay. Whether you're married or not, like don't over attorney it, but your dream date. Okay. So mine is Lenny Kravitz. If anybody out there knows Lenny Kravitz, like he's my guy. And I'll tell you, I'll do this with people and they'll name their person. And I'm like, okay, imagine them in front of you, 4 inches away saying, oh, this is great. And I can't wait to go on a date with you. And I'm going to take you to Paris. And here's some flowers and here's some chocolate. And oh, I can't wait to be with you. And you can physically see them as I'm doing this exercise. I'm like, first of all, how do you feel right now? And you can see them physically like pushing away in this pretend exercise. And it has helped me, especially in the scary times, to remember like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter you have to go forward with it it doesn't matter if I go homeless tomorrow. I am not in any way chasing that.
Well, and if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
the what is your bar? What is your, like for you that you just named, if I go homeless tomorrow, like that is not even, it's available.
It's absurd.
Right? So like that, those kinds of things that we just say, like I used to say that too. I used to say, it's so important to me to send my kids to Waldorf school. Now we're homeschooling, but I was like, this is so important to me. I don't care if we have to live in a cardboard box. I am sending my kids to this school. That is ridiculous. And right. And also, but they're just things that we say. And those things that we say are still rooted in something in us that we are re-anchoring when we continue to say it. And the thing that I feel like is really important to just name is that we can have the experience, and believe me, I have done this and I get it. And I used to love this. Play at the level of the mind. We can work it at the mind. We can work it at the mind, and it can be hard, and it can be, it takes so long. So satisfying, but in a really painful kind of way. Or we can just go to the root, which is not at the mind.
No, it's not.
In the body, it's in the unconscious, it's in somewhere that we can't consciously see. And then we unhook that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can we actually allow things to be that easy? Because a lot of times we can't. We are actually really super attached to things needing to be really hard and taking a long time in order for them to be worth it. Okay. Let's just see if we might be willing to like unhook from that story. Could we actually just be willing to have amazing things be available to us right now just because?
Yeah. And that I remember you and I working on that issue a lot of my worthiness. And I remember I thought you were nuts. I thought you had absolutely lost your damn mind because you had the suggestion that maybe I was worthy of receiving money just for the sheer sake I was alive. Not because I had provided value, not because I had done a great job for a client, just because I was a human being. I seriously thought you had lost your mind. And, now I can
see how you would actually stop that from then happening. Right?
Yeah.
Like unconsciously, then you are 100% not available to receive anything that you have not determined that you are valuable and worthy of receiving. Well, you're stopping flow right there of all of the magic that gets to be available and is available all around you all of the time.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I will put your contact information in all of the links. And Arriya lives in Seattle, Bainbridge Island. But she can work with anybody all over the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for joining us today on The Happier Attorney with Arriya Kingrey. And if you have gotten any value out of this episode, which I certainly hope you have, please like, share, subscribe, do all of the things so that it helps other attorneys be able to see this and helps them as well. If you are not in the Facebook group, Attorneys and Flat Fees, check out the link below. It's a great group where you will get the support of other attorneys who want to use flat fees. If you have any interest in learning how to work with me directly, check out the link. Just go to britalong.com and you will see all the things. So take care, and we'll see you on the next episode.